August the 29th, 2024. Guys, you're looking at satellite images over the U.S., southern Mexico, and, northern Mexico and southern Canada. We've had a system setting out here for a couple of days. It's really been quite a blessing if you live in the southeast, because this time last year in August, we were begging for rain and anything to end that heat. That's why we lost so many trees, I think 10 million or maybe in the state, maybe more than that. But anyway, it was devastating, and the heat itself was miserable. We had power outages because of the heat, burning up transformer stations and things like that. But anyway, this system's still sitting there. It's starting to throw up some storms. Now, I don't think this is going to end up being very bad here as far as tornadoes. We'll keep an eye on it, though. But I do know that right now in Lake Pontchartrain, right there for you friends in New Orleans and Baton Rouge, there are marine warnings, and you got marine warnings popping up, I think, down in Florida, a couple other places here, because it's starting to intensify. Again, if this thing had been setting further south, we would be looking at a tropical system. But we are. Now, again, here, through the central part of the nation, you're under tornado watches now. And if you're watching these last few frames, how these clouds explode, check that out. So at any moment, this could go into tornado warnings. It's very hot. We're very fortunate. Like I said, yesterday, before we got that first rain, quickly in the morning at about 10 o'clock a.m. Central, it was 115 degrees on our heat index monitors. Now, the rain came through and it dropped it to about 94 heat index in just, it doesn't seem like it was much more than 10 or 15 minutes. Now it's overcast. We're getting ready for some more of God's precious rain, so I'm not going to complain about it. I just was pointing out how much different it is now for us than it was last year. Now, Idaho, we're going to zoom in on you guys because y'all looks like you've got some major fires going on right there, and you can see the motion of the wind. And a lot of this, even the storms you guys are going to be dealing with here, are because of this low pressure system that's rotating here. That's pulling the smoke this way also. It's going to be a steering event. Now, there's not much about this on the news locally here, guys, but you folks that are in the Idaho region, come in the comments if you're watching this, and there's one of our Huskies. But it looks like this fire was going to move north through this range here. See the green trees? And that's the way it was going this morning. But this low-pressure system that's spinning counterclockwise, it's giving or pulling the storms up now, is turning the smoke to the right. So you guys in this fire area, if it was projected to move north, remember it is moving to the right. The only positive thing of that would be that it has less to burn in this area. It looks like maybe already a burned out spot there, maybe a lake. And this, if it moved north, it could cover all these ranges all the way to Canada. If it doesn't get any better than what we're seeing, you guys need some rain bad. Now I want to back out, guys, and go into the infrared, kind of show you where the moisture is. And to be honest with you guys in Idaho, it doesn't look like you've got a lot looking this far out into the Atlantic. We're hoping that will change for you. You're going to need it. Maybe you've got enough firefighters in that area and can get enough water to it that will put it out and some suppressant. But here, guys, you can see where the storms are bursting up through the very eastern section of Texas, central Louisiana, and now coming into our area as we speak here in central Mississippi. Offshore, you can see it. The entire Gulf is kind of warming up, getting ready for the second stage of the Atlantic hurricane season. That's what this video is about. And you can see it just by looking at this. Florida, you're getting some rain, some storms, and then right here, guys, in the last few frames, look how red these clouds turn in strength. That's why I'm saying those tornado watches may have, by the time I've got through this video, changed into warnings. So be very careful. Going up into central Canada, through this area, you're going to be seeing it also before it's over with. Maybe it will be cool enough to dampen them down. Now let's take a look over Africa. We've got a couple systems. They're watching the one in the front here. Earlier, it had a 40% chance of development, and it would be very close to southern Florida around August the 8th, looking at the models. Now, they have not been talking about yet this system. It's much larger than what we're seeing, but this is about to get into the Caribbean and be in much more conducive waters, as they say. But this system right here is already showing rotation coming off the tip. Another system here, they have been known to merge. One thing about it, they're both south of the Cabo Verde Islands. The further south, usually you can count on it getting closer to the Caribbean or the Gulf. The further north, if you get close to the Cabo Verde Islands, then they have a tendency to be pulled into the North Atlantic at that point. Let me switch this to the infrared. And here you can see why I'm so concerned about this area. Again, this one is the one they're watching, but I'm sure this one is going to come up on the radar very soon, possibly later today. But these two storms, if they merge, all the energy's there they need. Look at the rotation here, guys, and it's a very wide rotation, very early to be coming off the African continent. But look at where the energy's at, and again, you could either have two separate storms here or they will merge. This is going to be a problem, but again, we cannot overlook what is happening here. Let's go to the National Hurricane Center. And here's what we got. This is 3 hours old, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a 40% chance of cyclone formation in the next 7 days. It says a tropical wave over the central tropical Atlantic is producing some disorganized showers and thunderstorms. Environmental conditions appear conducive for gradual development of the system. And a tropical depression could form by early next week while it moves westward at 10 to 15 miles per hour and approaches the Lesser Antilles. The system is then forecast to move westward to west-northward across portions of the eastern Caribbean Sea during the middle part of next week. Let's take a look at a couple models now. Now let's take a look at the Canadian model. It has changed since I watched it earlier, and it has moved more in a westerly direction. What we're seeing, before I started, you see the yellow area, that's lower pressure. The greens are even lower, and you get into the blues like you see in the North Atlantic. That's even lower pressure. That means the stronger the system. And you can see the color coding along here. So, but you get above that yellow there, and you're starting to get into higher pressure, and that is what will push a storm, pull it, or open up for it. Either way, it's the steering mechanism. Now, this Canadian model has changed since this morning. It was showing it moving possibly up the east side of Florida over into the Atlantic. Now it looks like the high pressure in this new update is going to trap it into the Gulf. What we're looking at in the yellow is kind of where they're going to, it's the easiest for it to steer. Now if it gets into the green and blue, like you're seeing in the North Atlantic, it's even easier for this thing to strengthen. You can see the color coding here. But now it looks like it's going to make it into the Gulf if things don't change. But we're still just a little bit out. Let's watch it as and play it forward. Here's your storm developing here. Now watch. Earlier it was going to turn right through that opening that this storm created. Now the high pressure is predicted to close behind it and keep it into the Gulf. Again, that's just, I'm glad I didn't do the video earlier and waited for this update. Now, I've got it stopped. We're going to play it through. This is September the 8th. The earlier model this morning showed an opening in this high pressure system, turning yellow as an alley right through here created by this low pressure system, because it's going to, as you see, as we play the video forward, it's going to come off of the east coast. Now it looks like it's going to trap it into the Gulf. Now we're going to see it change somewhat. Now let me say this for our friends in Texas and Mexico. If that high pressure stays that dominant over this eastern or southeastern U.S., this thing could become a Texas event very easily. We know all of this is going to change because it's changed since this morning. Now let's look at another model. Now this is the Euro model. It is showing basically the same path. It does show the storm moving slower because both have stopped on September the 8th. Check the timestamp there. This one has not crossed Cuba yet, but it is in that area to put it straight into the Gulf of Mexico. We're still seeing some high pressure, but notice right here, guys, it's not thick. In other words, the yellow, it can move through it very easily. That's what it's doing now. So that would let it come right up into possibly Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas. Again, I always say this thing is going to change. But we've had, what, about 3 weeks or so now, almost a month, it seems like, without any weather. But we see that cycle. Now, I've also heard that, and I saw one report that we may have one of the coolest falls in a very long time. Now, being from the south, that's very welcome news to me. But that can make it much colder for our friends up north. I will look into it a little more deeply, and I will update it in our next video. But guys, we're watching both storms. It's a heads up. Be safe.